Hello, beautiful people. You are listening to the Communal Table podcast, part of Food and Wine Pro. I am your host, Kat Kinsman, and my guest today is the illustrious Jason Vincent. You look skeptical at that, but
I don't know what it means.
I am not at all skeptical about this because he's got some fantastic places in Chicago. Giant and City Mouse and Chef's Special Cocktail Bar, which open yet? No,
not yet.
Soon. But I have been dying to talk to you because you say and do a lot of things that I think are pretty damn great. So welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So you were a Food and Wine Best New Chef. Yes.
Yeah, 2013.
Thank you for representing the family.
Yeah.
But you also were on a more recent accolade list as well for our best restaurants to work for.
That's true.
Yeah.
It was unexpected. It's really cool. It's a great idea for you guys to put that forward.
You came multiply recommended, which was a really, really nice thing to hear. And I saw your name on the list and I backed it up because you had written a communal table essay around this point last year. I remember I was actually in Chicago, probably a few blocks from your restaurant, editing this. And it was about hunger and the duty of chefs to take care of people who are hungry. Let's talk about how you operate a little bit, the principles that got you to a place of being a great place to work for.
I mean, it's kind of a loaded question because I don't really see it as something that we're typically doing that should be outside the box, outside the norm.
Unfortunately.
It is. And, I mean, I am not one to say that I went through like some, crazy kitchens where like everybody was like getting shit thrown at them or, whatever. I've worked for really amazing people. Jason Hamill in Chicago and his wife Leah, who owned Lula, and Sam Hayward in Maine at 4th Street. These are just good role models, But it's bigger than restaurants. Life isn't restaurants. So like I could have...
The hell you say.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like the culture of restaurants is something that I've been in since I was 14. And, it's 30 years at this point. And if I stayed on those railroad tracks of like, I'm in a restaurant and this is how I operate and whatever, I'd be way more fucked up than I am now. But it's like you see the humanity and you can see the out, inside and outside of the restaurant. And I don't know, you have choices. You can either try and make everything better, or you can try and, go with the status quo, or you can make everything worse. And my parents taught me to make everything better.
There's an impetus toward the worse, and there was for a long time a glamorizing of that particular way of being, of you give everything up for the restaurant. That's the only thing that matters. A friend of mine likes to talk about Gen X masochist chefs. And there is a group pretty squarely in there who were brought up in that way of being where you give your all and nothing less is acceptable, and finding almost glory in the detriment that it has to the rest of your life. How did you not have that? Was it your upbringing? Was it working in those kind of kitchens? How did you not have that mentality and yet still succeed?
I did have that mentality. And I think I was young and dumb enough when I did that. I mean, I lost tons of friends, just I didn't hang out on Saturday nights. I worked every weekend, literally every weekend. I worked every day. But I was in my teens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was in my teens and early 20s and a couple of my really good buddies stuck around. But other than that, I did. So I lost like early and often, which I don't know if it's a good thing. I don't know where I'd been otherwise. But I also had like, at that point, I thought I was going to be an English teacher. I went to like college.
There's a certain amount of that crossover of like writers and chefs and musicians and chefs and all the other careers and finding that.
Well, I think, and sometimes the chef part of it becomes like, the excuse, you know, to like to crouch down and say like, no, I have to work on a Saturday night because like I don't know, like I have anxiety. Like I'm terrified I'm terrified to go out to dinner.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I know that very, very well. It's hard to leave my house sometimes.
So it was easy to be like, no, if I put myself in the kitchen, then, you know, there are literally hours out of the day where I can stand over a cutting board and cut something and literally no one is talking to me. And this is great, you know, and then the tickets start coming in and you say words and you furrow your brow and things happen. And like, you know, it's very basic, but it's like, it's a safe space, if that makes any sense.
No, it absolutely does. And I have this conversation with people who ask why there's this intersection of mental health issues and restaurants. And I think it's a chicken and egg kind of thing because people who might not be suited for a 9-to-5 office environment where you have to be interacting with people, like find a home in the kitchen, and their skill set and their brain set is very amenable to the rhythm of a kitchen. But then there are also things in there that really exacerbate behaviors that might not be so great. Some self-medication that happens, some that avoidance of, you are working till whatever hour and you get off and there's nobody in your life who's going to tell you to make the same decision.
Right. Yeah, it's I'll be honest, that's something I still struggle with. I do feel like I drink too much. Mm-hmm. And I do think it's one of those things you can trace back to being in restaurants so early. And it's like, it's a secret that you're given like the 15-year-old beer and, shit like that. And,
yeah, you
don't really think anything of it until you're 43 and you're like, man, I drink too much. Mm-hmm. And, I try to make maybe excuses for it and try and understand it. And it's not like to no detriment. Like I don't do anything dangerous or, I don't drink and drive or anything like that. And it's just one of those things where it's like, for me, it's always there. It's like, what would my life, how would I have, is that just my personality? Is it like a whatever nature nurture thing? It's just a curiosity for me. Like at this point. Yeah,
it's an interesting thing. There's always a question, who would I have been if I didn't do that kind of thing? If I had, that Gwyneth Paltrow sliding doors moment. What is alternate?
I'm glad we're going to talk about the Avengers finally.
Oh my God. Don't spoil. I do have a friend who's already seen it
shut up.
Who works for Marvel. So.
Shut up.
He's giving away no spoilers.
I can't wait. I'm ridiculously excited.
Oh my gosh. It's going to be so. There's also an intersection of chefs and superheroes, I think.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing because I see a lot of chefs who are in their mid-40s. I'm in my mid-40s and, and my body is telling me yes and no on various things because I have health issues. But a lot of people who are sort of saying like, hey, having a little check-in with your body and your mind and your life and stuff and saying like, maybe I'll do it a different way. And I know that there are some chefs who have sort of traded in behaviors one for another. There are so many of them who have given up, drinking or substances and now like bicycle-like fiends or yoga, whatever, that thing happens to be and find the balance thing.
Yeah. I mean, I like exercising. Like I've taken up swimming. And a lot of those chefs are friends of mine. Like I can text Matt Jennings and say,
love that man.
Hey dude, how did you do this? And his first response is, are you mocking me right now? I'm like, no, I really want to know, like, what does your diet look like? And, he's a great human being and he'll just like take the time to say, this is what I do. And you can do it this way. And, it can be 3:00 in the morning. I'm like, do you eat carbs? And like, love them.
I think he's the patron saint of this podcast without actually having been on it yet because we've just invoked him. It's just a matter of time before he comes on here. But for people who have not heard us talk about him a million times, maybe you're jumping around episodes. He is a chef in Boston who I think lost half of his body weight or more. Is sober and bicycles like a fiend and has stepped away from his restaurant to make a hospitality firm to try to make life in restaurants better for other people.
He's a good human being.
He is truly and genuinely the goods.
And he sucks.
So you see him jumping out of what he's doing. You jumped out for a while.
I had to. It was
2014.
2014. It was right after Best New Chef, and the year I send notes to all the new Best New Chefs. I send handwritten postcards to all of them every year.
That's so lovely.
But the ones that I know, I try and PAX this year.
PAX.
I was able to send a message and say listen, the year after Food and Wine is it's a motherfucker. People want a lot out of you, and you need to really understand that your health and as a consequence your mental health are going to be tested. And there's nothing wrong with saying no to events. There's nothing wrong with, sitting at home on a Saturday night when the rest of your class is out doing whatever. It's you got to take care of yourself. And I didn't. So
yeah. Let's talk what that year looked like. Because the thing is, we realized that this was a problem. And because I've seen friends go through it, and whether it's Best New Restaurant, Best New Chef, James Beard Award, whatever it happens to be.
It's hard.
It really is. So we implemented over the past couple of years some mentorship training. So we're assigning,
awesome.
So we're assigning each chef a mentor and doing some training programs for them, when they were here with their class. We sat them down over a long lunch and had people talk about physical health, mental health, right partnerships, about saying no to media opportunities and all that, because, and they're a little bit deer in the headlights because it's the day it was announced. And at Aspen Food and Wine Classic, I hope you'll be part of this. We will have breakout sessions for them as well, and really talk them through, what does this look like now that you're a couple months into it and doing that.
I would love to.
Yeah.
I'd be honored.
Let's make this happen, because you're going to be at the Classic. Yeah. So what did that year look like for you? So it happened, the announcements in May, June, something like that.
I got the phone call from Dana
Yay, Dana
on February 28th. I remember exactly where I was.
Right.
I still tell her, I'm like, man, that was a crazy day. And then, we found out, or the announcement was in April, and then it's it's immediate. Your restaurant's much busier. And not only that, and it's not even, stuff that's, it's tangential. It's parallel, people who I remember we had a guy come in afterwards, and he was eating there, and he was I was just talking to him, and he was so are you going to be at Pebble Beach? And I'm I am cleaning the fucking walk-in cooler right now. I don't know what Pebble Beach is. I don't even know what state that's in. That's not, no, I'm not going to be there. But it's stuff like that just kind of keeps getting dropped on you, and you're it's a pretty tough time to say no, because you're it's everything appears to be an enormous fork in the road. It's if I do this, then this, and you have all these and as an anxious person, it's you think the worst.
Oh yeah, my brain catastrophizes, and it inevitably ends up with me living in a ditch, bunking with an alligator. It just, my therapist has this. Sorry to make
That's
you joke, but my therapist has this thing about spin out the anxious thoughts, the catastrophizing to the furthest possible place, and it ends up with everybody abandoning me and really living really in a ditch, bunking with an alligator. I don't know why the alligator is there. That's just where it went. But you're right. So you have these moments of should I say, what happens if I say no to this? Right.
Yeah. And I mean, just as an aside, my therapist has started using the phrase is that reasonable? Is that a reasonable thing to think? And I'm just and not in a condescending way.
Right.
I'm just she's that's not going to happen. And just about stuff that I freak out about.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's actually a very helpful, calming, soothing phrase. But so it was I don't know, it was later in the year. It was October, and I had a 2.5-year-old at this point, and I was doing all these events, and I would basically fly into Chicago, go to the restaurant, prep the event myself because everybody else is super busy running a restaurant. and then fly out and do an event and drink too much. It was like it was awful.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I know that when I get into phases where I'm not in my best head and I'm traveling too much and I'm away from my support system, that my mind goes wonky, and I set up some self-care for myself on the road. There are certain podcasts that I listen to. I travel with a little noise machine, and
Oh, smart.
yeah, it's been that's helped an awful lot. And I also know people who I can text and be like, "Hey, my brain's not doing super well," and they'll be there. But if you don't know to have that stuff set up, it can get really dire on the road, and especially. I think about festivals a lot.
Yeah.
And, we're exploring some of the stuff that we're doing at the Classic. And then I've had a role in other festivals too, where now we're setting up sober spaces or set up like daily events. There'll be a lot of places have AA meetings, just those check-in kind of things. Because I don't think people who don't participate in these as chefs or talent or whatever know what happens behind the scenes. And it can there are no limits. There's unlimited alcohol. You're away from your support system. It can get really incredibly raucous. Festivals have had deaths of chefs, and there isn't a checkpoint, and everybody's trying to continue the party.
Right.
Did anybody ever, like, on the road say, like, hey, man, maybe we go and we have an early night?
I don't know if that's the good thing or bad thing. Like, I'm never out of control.
Yeah.
Like,
that's a very chefy thing too.
It's not one of those, like, holy cow, I'm falling down. Like, I'm literally the person booze puts me in a great mood. It's fun. And like, I'm not like a stand on top of the bar kind of guy, but I'm like, we're good. This is fun. Like, we get a nice conversation and all that kind of stuff. But that's also confusing to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's also, I don't know if it's called like imposter syndrome or whatever.
Oh, I know that one.
But it's a different level of it where I wanted this. I wanted Best New Chef. Like, in a very weird way, like unbelievable. And there's tons of young chefs out there who want the same thing. And it's just, what am I going to do? Like, complain about like going to cool events,
right?
But yes, absolutely I am, because it's too much. It's too much for your body.
I completely understand. I get to do a lot of really, really cool and interesting stuff, but the way that I do it in particular, because I'm out there like talking to people about really super emotional stuff, and
Sure.
I'm like, yes, I'm in this beautiful city, but I'm also like, sitting in a room with people talking about suicide or whatever it happens to be, and like, yes, there's a beautiful background there too, but I think especially in this last year where we have lost Anthony Bourdain, who had arguably the on paper coolest life of
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. And that's one of those, and I think that was a real wake up call for a lot of people in the industry, because he had, he was living the dream. He was the line cook made good and you see, I think it was a really jarring moment for a lot of people, including, those of us who, knew him personally, and to see that dichotomy of, getting to have the experiences, getting to have all that privilege and pleasure and all that kind of stuff, but having that thing in you.
Yeah.
That is wearing, and where
depression doesn't give a shit what your job is.
It sure doesn't. Depression, anxiety, they really don't care what you do. And I, hear some people say like, oh, famous people, whatever, what do they have to be depressed about? People don't get that it's not about something. It's just what your fun body and brain decided to do. So what did that look like for you? So you said you're out there and it's too much. You come back to the restaurant. Were you able to keep a handle on the restaurant at this particular time? And what did home look like at that point?
Home was, we had a couple of miscarriages in that time.
I'm so
My wife
sorry.
did. Yeah. And it's just like one of those things where it happens and I get it, but it's like,
a lot.
I have never seen my wife that sad before. You know what I mean? And it's just like,
and you can't fix her.
There's nothing I can do. And we have this 2.5-year-old who's, perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm not being her dad. And I remember, I tell this story a lot, and I don't know if I've ever called him out by name, but I'm going to this time, and I hope it doesn't embarrass him. But I was doing an event with Gerard Kraft, and he is a thoughtful, wise, he was like my Yoda. You know, I was like a kid, and he's like this guy, and I'm like sitting in a car with him, and we're going to like the fucking farmer's market or some shit. And I'm just like depressed. We're in Napa, like going to a farmer's market. I'm like, there can't be anything better than this with Gerard Kraft. Like, this is great. And we start talking about kids, and he starts telling me about like, you know, his thoughts. He had an older kid, and like, I think they were pregnant again. And he told me a story about like not feeling like he knew his kid and vice versa. And man, it hit home. Like, it was like, and that, I think that was in 2000, that was like a year before. So it's like, it was like weighing on me like the whole time. And it was like the whole time, like through Food and Wine and stuff like that. And like, you know, Beard semifinals, like, who gives a shit? It's like, I'm looking at my kid going like, do you know me? Do I know you? Like, and they're 2.5. But then I remember like just yelling at her one day, and she like looks at me, and she's 2.5, and she's like, why are you so angry at me? And I'm just like, that's God. It, I'm done. Yep. Like, we're good. I'm gonna be better, and I need to make a change. And you know, at this point my wife was pregnant with our youngest daughter, and you know, it's not like one of those, it's definitely not an easy thing, but it was like, I had been at Nightwood for 5 years, so like internally, like, it was like 5 years.
That's a good benchmark.
That's good. But then it's like, you know, people like to kick you when you're down, and they do it unintentionally, I believe, and non-maliciously. But with like social media, it's like you see one fucking tweet, or, you know, a bunch of people unfollow you after you quit your job, and they go, you know, not that I care, but like at that point when you're like
everything hurts extra.
Yeah, you're pretty vulnerable. You're like, holy shit, did I just fuck up my career? You know? But it's like, I don't know. Now I know I didn't, but at the same time, it's like, fuck those people.
I mean, like, really, know? And I imagine too, you know, I always sort of look at how media is complicit in things, because you love a good shit show, you love a good, you know, whatever, and trying to figure out the thing. And I do think there's been much of a turn toward compassion, because as people realize like what chefs are actually dealing with, and the fact that you never know what is going on. And I always say, you never know what.
But just people, not even chefs. I mean, like, that's the thing. It's like humanity is so fucking, being a person is hard.
I say this all the time. It is hard being a person, and just putting yourself into the world, like leaving your bed is a hard thing to do. I don't care what your life is. If you have the best job in the world, if you have the shittiest job in the world, if you have all these things, like zipping on your human suit is really hard.
And I'm a white straight male. It's like, if it's this hard for me, I can't even fucking imagine. It's like,
I think about this on a regular basis. And like, I have every privilege in the world. I'm a straight, white, cisgender, married woman with health insurance and a job. And it's, and it can be this difficult. So, which makes me think like, it's my moral duty to go and make it a little bit easier for other people if it's, talking about it or whatever it is.
Be an ally.
Yeah, and that can manifest in all different ways, and we will definitely talk about this. But what did you do for yourself? And that you said you quit. How did you? What did quitting look like?
Quitting was good. It was amicable, and it was just
with your partners or with.
Yeah, I mean, I was an employee, so it wasn't even like we didn't have any like legal stuff to figure out or anything like that. So that was the divorce was easy, and like.
And they knew what you needed.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, like, I had definitely, my sous chef at the time, who's my partner now, Ben, he is somebody who over the years, I've known him we've worked together now for 12 years. And it's like, you can look at him and he can, I can say like, I am fucking depressed.
Yeah.
And I need to do this for myself. And he's human about it. Like, and he, you know, we're able to talk like that. We're able to say things like, I love you. You know, it's like, it's a great relationship. You know what I mean? And having somebody like him where I say like, listen, I'm leaving, you know, like I'm not going to work here anymore. He goes, you know, well, I understand, you know, it's not. And then the guy I was working for, Jason Hamill, like he'd been my boss for 9 years at that point. He was like, I understand, you know?
Yeah.
And it's, like I said, I'm very fortunate, like in who I've worked for. My boss when I was 14, a guy named Dave Specia at Pizzazz in Cleveland. Pizzazz. 4 Z's.
Wow, that's a lot of Z's.
You know, he had a temper. Like, I mean, it definitely, like, it happened, but I mean, not in a I don't know what kind of mood Dave's going to be in today.
That's the worst.
Yeah, it's the worst. And I've never worked for that person. So, you know, most of the time Dave would come in like, hey, how are you? You know, like, and it's just, you know, and this was in like 1990, you know.
Where people were definitely, that was a different restaurant culture.
Yeah. And it was just, you know, this is what I expect of you. This is what you expect of me. And he taught me a ton about just being a person. But then I had to go through all the angst and all the, you know, culinary school and the weird shit.
What were your bands that you listened to at that place?
Man.
Who were you at this?
Morphine.
Okay.
I think was real big. I was in a metal band called the Dreaded Stoners.
Oh, are there recordings? Are there visual
I don't know if
audio?
anybody out there has them. They can. we had a couple. We two of the members were in. It was therapy. It was music therapy.
Yeah.
So there was a recording studio since they like were like bad kids. So they got to go to this like music therapy. So we had a recording studio, and we would just go in there and we would like record. It was great.
Oh, that sounds incredible. Would that everybody had that outlet at that point, like sort of end of high school, and that I was, you know, goth kid down in my basement painting and anarchy symbols and like Bauhaus like logos and stuff on the wall. So when you left, then what did you do with yourself during that time? Because you were a person who had been working in restaurants since you were that age and identify as a chef. If you have an anxious brain like mine, and they manifest in all different ways, I have the internal accountant, but you have not earned your keep in the world today. You have to accomplish something, or else like you can't go to bed, you can't sleep. How did you shut that off? How did you spend your time?
Well, there was a baby.
Mm-hmm. So
forget.
That's a chunk of time. So you have a baby, and did you have 2 babies at that point?
Yeah, there was a newborn at that point and a 3.5-year-old.
Okay.
So that keeps you pretty busy.
Yeah.
And my wife her company's great, and she got 3 months off of work, so we were able to like spend the time. I mean, you know, I'm not going to lie, we are still paying back the loans that we took out to, you know, make up for my income 4 years later. But you know, we definitely had, my wife is an angel, and
What's her name?
Marianne.
Marianne.
What if I was like,
just exists in my head.
She's great, and she is unbelievably supportive. And when I've been very depressed around her at points in our marriage, and she's never taken a pot shot at me because of it. Do you know what I mean?
Oh God, yeah.
And I recognize it, and I understand that, and like what a big deal that is, because I'm not that patient of a person, but she is a fucking angel. There
was actually a plot point recently on the hit show This Is Us, where and there's a character who has pretty severe anxiety, and they're a really great couple, and she takes a pot shot at him about his anxiety, and it just hit me to the core. I let my husband know as soon as we started dating, and I was like, look, here's what you're getting into, and you walk away, feel free. You know, I'm warning you up front. And he was, bring it on. And it has been the greatest pleasure and privilege of my life is, being with this partner who I don't have to hide my worst self from.
Right.
He's seen me through some pretty dark shit.
Because you can't, like, when you're at that point, when you're low, when you're really low, like the last thing you want to have to do is like figure out how to make people think that you're not.
Oh, it's exhausting. The sparkle and tap dance, I call it. So, and well, the thing is also with depressed or anxious people, like once you do go out into the world, like you feel like, at least for me, I know that I would have to be sort of extra on so nobody would guess. And it finally took sort of, I was talking about it as a coming out, and I did it in a very, very public fashion, with CNN saying like, hey,
really?
Oh yeah, I wrote a couple essays. I wrote an essay in, what year was that? About depression and my world with that. And then a couple of years later with anxiety. And it changed my life because I didn't have to pretend anymore.
Right.
I mean, I still, if I'm at my worst, I'm not going to super be in public with it. But you're also, you have little kids and you're trying to model behavior for them. And that's got to be such a tough thing. I grew up with a depressed parent and I could tell. I always assumed it was my fault somehow.
Right.
Yeah. So how do you figure out how to be a person who lives with this stuff and, you've got kids and, you want better for them and, how do you have that conversation with them about like, daddy's not mad at you?
Right. I mean, honestly, I don't think she would mind me saying this and I hope she doesn't. My mom was depressed when I was younger. And she I don't know if she's medicated. I kind of doubt it. I'll ask her. But she spent years working through it. And it was I never really saw it as like my fault. I just knew she wasn't happy sometimes.
Yeah.
And, looking back to her mother, you could see traits of that too. And especially now that I'm like, this is what it looks like. Mm-hmm. I can remember being a kid and saying grandma was depressed,
The hindsight's amazing.
But it's pretty remarkable and I think it's pretty recent. And like, I just want to say I really do appreciate you coming out because if more people did, and I think since they have, it does the thing. It normalizes it. And like, you don't feel like a fucking freak.
The feeling like a fucking freak it's exhausting and it kills people.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people around who I respect and love to really publicly say like, hey, here's what it looks like. And people who I, trust with that. The normalizing is huge. Andrew Zimmern is that for me a lot. He's been there for me in some really, really dark moments. And you look at him and, you see this super gregarious guy who's running around the world and, in a good mood and all this kind of stuff. But he speaks really openly about it. I'm thinking of all the people in our culinary world who are open about it. Daniel Patterson, has been, David Chang has come on this show and talked about it. And I did this survey with Chefs with Issues when I started it out. And I asked people, what are you dealing with? All these kind of questions. And it occurred to me that the stat that came back was that a huge percentage of people in kitchens and in restaurants were dealing with this, but they weren't saying anything to each other because they didn't want to be thought of as weak or crazy.
Right.
And that's a particularly kitchen mindset. I mean, it's in the culture at large, but there's a kitchen mindset to that too. Were you worried about judgment from people? When you left, did you tell people why?
No, because I honestly, I don't think I knew why. I mean, like there's just a very basic term for when you can't go on in kitchens, and it's just you say you're fried and or you're burned out or something like that. And it was for me. It was like it was like a badge. Like I've burned out like 3 times, and like I like had I was like, it's fucking
Crash
stupid,
and burn, man.
Yeah, but it's like I really do think that. There is a generational divide because, the millennials they're much better
They're so articulate
at figuring this out. And it's like, it's not, I've opened up to people about suicide and trying to get them to like understand that it's okay to like go see a therapist and go, get on Prozac, like do what, there's no shame in it. And like just had the response come back, go, I'm not ashamed about it. I just opened up to you about suicide, man. And you're like, no, I'm good. Yeah, like I'll go on Prozac. Yeah. Where's the therapist?
That's so good.
This is so fucked up.
I know. Cause like I'm just a few years older than you. Would people or not? I mean, I was talking about it in high school just because, I had a serious crash at like 13, 14, super depressed, went on medication and all that. And I would open up to people who I sort of thought needed it, but we didn't talk about that. You just kind of didn't. So I would whisper it to people and then I just kind of got louder and louder with it. But I see now it's so great.
Sure. It's awesome.
It's really good. But I think there's still a lot of ground to cover with people, I think Gen X basically. And, and it's funny, some of the boomers too, I'm seeing some of them finally crack open that door.
Prozac.
I'm Vyvanse.
Yeah.
Yeah, my anxiety is treated with Vyvanse and medical marijuana, which that's a brand new thing for me.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, I went through Effexor. I was on Effexor too long, and going off that nearly killed me. That sucked bad. But I just want to say, since we brought up suicide, I just want to shout this out as I often do. Crisis text line is available 24/7. You text 741-741, and a volunteer will be there, and they will listen to you for as long as you need and get you any help that you need. And I swear by them. I'm trained with them, and they save lives. I mean, and we have to talk about suicide because since Tony, I know of at least, I've lost track. It's in the high teens of suicides in the industry that I know about. And those are just the ones that I know about since then. And it was a taboo word for a long time, but I know Chicago's had some loss.
Yeah. I mean, even just outside of the industry, like I try and keep tabs on that's why I was saying my Twitter's pretty angry because it's all like politics and stuff. And
right there with you.
Fuck Trump and all that. So, but like then there's, guys like Jake Tapper at CNN who just kind of like, they are like, they force these stats of like, of vets who are committing suicide down your throat. And it is so hard to not feel that there's something so broken with us as a world, as a people, that we are okay with just putting people in these situations where they're not going to come out of it right and then not taking care of them. It's insanity.
Yeah. I have to say, I know not everybody is a CNN fan, but I worked there for 5 years, and they were who let me come out very publicly when I was there, even though I was the food editor. They're like, this is great. And then they let me write stories that were
That's awesome.
Not about food and just about mental health. And, they were super, there was a really good open dialogue with them about it. So I know a lot of people don't love their politics and stuff, but they are good. The humanity of it is a really extraordinary thing. And I remember doing a lot of reporting there and talking to communities of color where there might be a stigma, taboo. There's military, there are farmers, agricultural suicides are through the roof. And
there's flat out studies. I mean, the Supreme Court's about to see this if it's okay to discriminate on people who are transgender.
Jeez.
And it's like, and that Betsy DeVos congressional hearing like last week where she's like, yeah, we know that, trans kids commit suicide at a higher rate if they're not protected or, and she's like, that's how it is. It's like, fuck that shit.
Yeah,
that is not how it is.
And I feel like the culinary industry is getting better. I hope, maybe this is me being hopeful, but thinking about more inclusive environments, because like a lot of it, you see kind of who works in restaurant kitchens. Well, it's funny because there are the people who work in restaurant kitchens who are in the back, and you never necessarily see a lot of the faces that you see sort of celebrated are, straight white men. And the front of house, I think there's going through a change. What do you see that the industry is doing, or you can talk about what you do in your particular kitchen to make sure that it's super inclusive, that people of all gender expressions and orientations and skin colors and creeds and everything are not just welcome but protected in your kitchens? How do you set that up?
Well, I guess two things. I think the industry at large is doing a really great realignment to include people, food and wine, the beards, like everybody's making that effort. The thing that I'll be honest, like scares the shit out of me is the people who are still pulling the strings. And this is not like, this is what's happening in food and wine or whatever. I'm just curious. Still the same old white men who are making the decisions, and the pendulum's going to swing back. Because we just had a list come out in Chicago, and I'll be honest, it was predominantly Caucasian and predominantly male. And it's like, not cool. Like, no, like you can't do that for 1 year. You can't, you can't be inclusive and a normal person for 1 year and put out a list that's actually representative. I mean, Chicago's a pretty segregated city.
Yeah, it is.
And you can't put out a list that's inclusive of the entire city, the south and west sides and the north side, and then all of a sudden just shrink it back the next year. It's like, it's trash. It's garbage. Sorry.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, I think that has a lot to do with the hiring of who is doing the writing, doing the assigning. I think it's a systemic problem that I think more and more publications are addressing. But if you don't come into it with that lens of having people of all different backgrounds write the stories, they're going to have just a pretty narrow scope of even where to look. And I really think we need to go through a grand period of discomfort, and especially for people with privileges to feel pretty uncomfortable. And it needs to be a very necessary thing.
I'm volunteering. Yeah. Like, leave me off all your fucking lists. Put somebody else, you know what I mean? And it's like, not even, the thing is, it's like, if you do it 1 year, it's a blip, and it's not good enough. It's garbage. And like the thing is, it might be a difficult thing to find, you know what I mean? But it's for the next generation. It's for the little black girl on the southwest side of Chicago who is in a Kitchen Possible, course, and she's seeing all these chefs come through who are women and chefs of color and white people, and she sees the diversity, and she understands that I can be that. And then in 20 years, she's on the cover of Food and Wine. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's a long slog, but man, it is fucking worth it. The episode that just aired was Kwame Onwuachi, and his book is very impressive.
I cannot say enough good things about his memoir.
I'm a Top Chef fan.
Yes, I mean he's so. I'm just a Kwame fan in general, and he was one of our best new chefs in this most recent class.
And I just wrote him a postcard.
Oh, thank you for doing that. And and his book, I was telling him, and I wrote a little blurb that they sent out with it, and saying I think it'll change the face of who is welcome in kitchens. But he wrote a Communal table essay recently that he still has delivery people coming in there and wondering who the chef is, even though it says executive chef on his thing. So what does that look like sort of systemically? Like, what can chefs and what should chefs be, or people in hiring positions at restaurants do for front and back of house to make sure that people know even to come and apply there? What are the ways that they can do that?
I mean, I personally, I wish I knew. Yeah. I would think for what we're going to do for our next place, Chef Special, it's like we have a hiring void, and we're trying the same, this is where we'll put it out and this is where we'll do it. It's like, fuck that shit. Like, we're going to physically walk flyers down to the south and west side of Chicago and put them up and put them in stores and community centers and, other places where people congregate and people need jobs. And, we're going to try as hard as we can to coordinate schedules so people can have the schedules that they need. Rick Bayless, actually, who we were just talking about, is
he's
doing,
pretty great on this.
He's doing a program called The Hatchery, where he trains the kids from the south and west side between 16 and 24, over a 12-week period, and then places them at places like Giant and Chef Special, and it's great. And it's like, you have to do something. You have to like figure out that not everybody. Some people like to say, I prefer green, workers and whatever. And some people say I'll only hire, people who have however much experience. however much experience is a done deal. That doesn't exist anymore. And it's like, if we're not going to take the time to invest in a 16-year-old kid and say, yes, you know what, I'm going to pay you $16 an hour to come in 3 hours a day after school. I'm going to pay your bus fare so you can get up here.
The transportation thing is
It's huge. It's huge.
And it's a thing where it might be, on a restaurant's bottom line might not be the biggest thing you pay for, but if you're that kid, that's everything. That's breaking those barriers that are, our subway fare, our, transportation of some sort, the accommodations that it takes for different people's lives. When we did this mentorship training, Tom Colicchio was part of it, and he was saying that he had transformed his question of, early in his career, like, just you're late, and instead asking, like, why were you late?
Yeah.
And
are you okay?
Yeah, and seeing, is there something in there where maybe somebody's, be like, well, my mother's in the hospital, my, whatever, something happened to be, and having that human sensibility about it. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today and saying, like, it's free to be nice. Or kind.
It totally is.
It's not that freaking hard to be a human being. And it's, and I think training people out of that mentality where it's all about being just like hardcore pirate ship.
Right. I was on a panel with somebody, and that was their question. Like, everybody knows kitchens are like a pirate ship or blah. I'm just like, that sounds fucking awful. Like, who wants to be on a fucking pirate ship?
Yeah.
Like, I want to be on a baseball team. I want to, I want to sit in the dugout and shoot the shit and go up and do my job. And everybody, if I don't do my job, you're going to help me. And, that kind of thing. You're going to drop some balls. You're going to make some great plays. Like, it's light. Shit happens.
Yeah. I think there's been that sort of transformation from it. And like, God bless our friend Anthony Bourdain, but he loved the pirate ship and romanticized it. And then came to a point later where he realized, like, oh crap. And, and sort of walked a lot of that back. And because I think he saw what the toll is of it. And the toll's been real.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who aren't around anymore. And whether they burned out or they died, it's real, and we have to address it.
But I mean, in fairness, there are still people who, we have a couple people at Giant who are, they like working a lot.
Yeah.
They like doing
great.
that. And it's not that they're like, I don't know how to say this. They're not the bad kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't have bad kids. They're still good people. Mm-hmm. They just like to they're more serious than others. Mm-hmm. It's just, that's their nature. And going back to the 16-year-old kid who's traveling from the South Side, mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, you want to ask him if everything's okay. But if the answer is constantly like, I didn't feel like showing up on time, then he gets fired too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not, it's not complete. It's still a business. It's not complete hippy dippy, but the people that are there, again, like, Dave Specia told me, you take care of me, I'm going to take care of you. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a healthy place.
That's really healthy is, I'm learning more and more about what that looks like for a different kind of people. And I know that when you deal with anxiety, depression, whatever your condition happens to be, I never say cured. I hate that word, or
Nobody's
fixed, or whatever.
cured.
It's ongoing. It's the work. It's the long work. And some days you wake up and think like, damn it, I've done the work. Why am I still?
Why am I 2 steps back?
Like, why does it still feel this? And I just call it a bad brain day, a bad body day. And what I've done is give myself permission for more of those. So when you're in this time of taking time out, like, what did you do to swing out of that phase of it and go back into a kitchen? What was the transformation there for you?
I don't know if I ever really thought that I wouldn't end up back in a kitchen.
So this was a break rather than a hard stop.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I knew I wasn't going to go be an English teacher.
Not too late.
Yeah, but I had this moment where I was like in college, and I'm just like, I'm going to end up teaching 10th graders Pride and Prejudice. And I fucking hate Pride and Prejudice. I'm not, I can't do this. And, so I knew I wasn't going to do that. And I definitely kicked around a bunch of well, what if I moved to Hyde Park and become an instructor at the CIA,
Yeah.
or, you know, that's a possibility. But just everything. What if I'm a stay-at-home dad? Like, what if we move to Cleveland and it's more affordable? Like, we looked at houses in Cleveland. And then my wife, who's, again, much smarter.
Shout out to Marianne.
Much smarter than I am, was just kind of like, she was, you know, couldn't afford my shrink and figured I wouldn't need one during the break. So she kind of like, well, what about this? And what about this? What do you think about this? And like, not in a get off the couch kind of way, because I was taking care of 2 kids. I mean, I wasn't doing nothing. But she was just like, I don't know if you're going to be happy, like being a stay-at-home dad. And she would just say it frankly and having known me. And who knows if she's right? She probably is. She's always right. But I signed the lease at Giant without having an architect, a designer, a contractor, or all the money.
Wow.
So it was like, it was just one of those
intense.
like, yeah, like plug your nose and like, this is the space, here we go. But then I had like a lot of time to figure that stuff out. You know what
partners? Do you have, how does that work?
Investors, and like a couple of my investors are pretty.
Water.
Oh,
I will share my water
No, I'm
with
all
you. I just thought you were.
they're just one guy in particular was like, I see something in you. You're, you know, a hardworking kid from the Midwest. And that was his like mantra. And he was like, here's this much money to pay the rent while you figure it out and to get a business plan done and things like that. And I'm like, you know, very fortunate. Like, there's no other way to spin it. It's like, I mean, I sometimes look at my life and I'm just like, man, I'm in the right place at the right time. And like, I've made the decisions where it's like, I don't have to do those events anymore. And I don't have to like, I get to do stuff like this and talk about how I feel. And it's very hippy dippy. And for me, this is therapy.
Me
like
too.
making sure that somebody else knows that other people go through it. And like, I'm fucking D-list chef. Like, and that's great. We all go through it. You know what I mean? Like, it's important.
There is just today, there is a chef, and I feel like I can say his name because he has offered to write a communal table, or actually I asked him if he would do this, Jason Alley.
Oh man, he's the best.
He's selling his place and trying to figure out what is next. He's got a fantastic, beautiful place called Pasture.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what? Going to try to figure out what's next. And I've noticed
we were just down there for his Fire and Fork.
Oh, he's so talented, and he's put in the work on
Yeah.
himself and has been very, very public about putting in the work on himself and trying to figure out what's next. And I've noticed this mini wave of chefs from their mid-40s to their early 50s saying like, you know what, pause, and either I'm getting out, like Greg Baker is like, I'm done.
Right.
Jimmy Bradley is sort of like a pause, getting out, you know, not sure what's coming next. What would you say to somebody who's maybe scared to take that time, afraid they're going to go off everybody's radar, afraid somehow like if you get off the merry-go-round, you're not going to be able to jump back on?
They might be right. I mean, I've had a lot of phone conversations like with friends of mine who are far more successful than I am, and you know, that's it. That's what they want to talk about. They're like, you know, I'm fucking fried. Like, this isn't going the way I thought it was or it would. What's going to happen to me if I say I'm taking 2 years off? And it's like, it would be incredibly irresponsible for me to be like, yeah, do it. You know,
Right.
like fucking jump off the cliff. It's like, I don't know. Like, there's so many factors to it. And, you know, for any of them that I've spoken to that do have kids,
Yeah.
you know, and I try and say it in the most like kind of banal way, like, you know, like, are you going to get this time back? You know, I don't try and like say like, you know, you should do it this or you shouldn't do it. It's just like think about it. You know, you need to think about that. Because what that time gave me is that if I was going to get back into restaurants, I was going to have a normal life also. And everybody that I worked with was going to have a normal life also. And so far, so good. You know what I mean? But I mean, it's also because we're busy. So if we like stop being busy, like, I don't know, maybe we just close instead of going through that like painful, you know, like, okay, everybody needs to work more and have, you know, your quality of life is what's going to get sacrificed. It's like, fuck that shit. It's just a restaurant.
So what does the structure look like for people to be able to have a life and do more? Then grab your water if you want to.
Thank you. This water is so good.
I feel very parched.
It's these porn lights you got.
It's pretty intense.
I think they're porn lights.
Wouldn't know.
4-day work week.
For everyone?
For everyone. Yeah. I mean, not me or my partners, but you know, 4-day work week. We pay as much as we can. We have a system in place where everybody gets health insurance, which, you know, you don't really think about. Like, we had one of the front of the house came up to me the other day and she was like, I just, you know, want to thank you for that. And this isn't one of those like Trump, sir, he was crying and now thank you, sir. It's like, we had a conversation because she's using her health insurance. And it's like, if she was incurring these bills, I didn't ask what it was for. Like, that's none of my business. But it's like, if she was incurring these bills and unable to pay them, then all of a sudden she's going to try and work 5 days a week. And it's a vicious cycle. So it's like, or she's going to need a different job or, you know, whatever. It's just like, it's stress. And who needs that? You know what I mean? So there's those kind of things. And then there's, you know, time off and we're trying to figure out our finances for the next, 5-year plan. If we can try and, I don't want to say we're going to do this, but I'd love it if everybody could take a month-long sabbatical every year
lovely.
And still get paid, you know, like that would be incredible. I don't know if it's possible, but it's like, it's an idea. And if we don't at least put pen to paper to see if it's possible, then we're not doing our part.
That's humane. I mean, I know that like friends in New Orleans, I was just visiting there, have talked about how to do that because they know summers are dead. People really, I mean, there's some conventions that come now during the summer, but they're trying to figure out like, how do we take care of people? Like, can you trade them to a friend in another city to work for there? Can, you know, is there some sort of, it's got to be systemic. I think you have to have it sort of settled with other people around you so they can, you know, trade around and pick it up or something. But
that's a good idea.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Who do you think is doing it right out there? Who do you want to shout out for doing a good job at people?
I think the Ace Hotel, actually, I mean, that's why we partnered with them. They do a great job. You know, it was one of my big questions. It was like, you know, so at Giant, we provide health insurance. They're like, oh, we do too. 100% covered for everybody. Like, you know, it's not, I think the people who are doing it the most right, and this is not to say other people who are trying and doing it a little bit right are wrong, are the ones who are kind of taking the whole, the egalitarian system of like, we're the owners and we're the managers and you're the, you know, whatever, line cooks. And, you know, then there's in the front of the house and there's this like, it's, you know, this striation of like, it's like a plebe system or whatever. And it sucks. It's garbage. It's like, you know, the dishwasher has this, who's, you know, not to say she's the low man on the totem pole. She has the exact same insurance I do. And there's no reason that she shouldn't, you know what I mean? And it's, I think people that can see a restaurant or a business, I mean, again, like it's not just restaurants, who can see the scope of their life that they have control over because they're the owner of this business as a whole instead of compartmentalized in a really weird, fucked up way for no reason, are the ones who are gonna benefit. I think everybody's gonna benefit from everybody. And again, like, not to be super hippy dippy, if somebody's fucking up, fire them. You know what I mean? This is in no way a free pass to, you know, some sort of like inmates running the asylum. But it's important, you know, and I think it's better.
Yeah.
What the fuck do I know?
I no, I'm right there with it. Like, everybody has to take care of each other, because I really think all boats rise and sink together.
Totally.
Yeah, and you can feel it as a consumer, as a guest, you can feel it when you go into a restaurant and things are just off kilter,
Yeah.
and you can tell if, like, the runner is having a cruddy time of it. I was in a restaurant yesterday, and somebody was like yelling at the runner in a way that was not cool.
Not cool.
Yeah. And
Who wants to go to work and get yelled at?
No.
Nobody.
No, and we were sort of near where they were expediting, and I was kind of like, we couldn't hear you, kind of, and it was not.
It is just dinner.
I like that you're saying this. Like, it's just.
It's just fucking dinner.
It's just fucking dinner.
And it's like, I've never worked. I did a 6-month stage at Arzac in Spain, and
that's
it's like
intense. That's a female run?
Elena was
Yeah.
in charge. She was. Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
There was definitely the chef de cuisine was a guy named Peo, was a homosexual, and it was just very like, just at that point in my life, 2001, I was just like, that's so cool. You know what I mean? Like, this is cool. And even there, it was never, I mean, I got yelled at. But
Did you deserve it?
yeah, totally. But it was still, we've cooked sit down for family meal twice a day. It was still like, go take a walk. It was still enjoy your siesta. It was still, it was very human. It was, I've gotten very lucky with the places that I've worked.
And you've made a place that's good to work too.
Yeah.
Which is a really, it
I'd be a
made
shitty person if I worked in all these great places and then I was like, but you know what I'm going to do?
screw you, person moving up the ladder.
I make all this money off this 44-seat restaurant. It's going to be amazing.
You do have a restaurant coming up.
Yeah, which is bigger. It's a bar, and we, I don't know. It's another one of those things. Like I raised the money for Giant, and then my partners Ben and Josh, we just gave them. I just gave them a piece of the restaurant right off the bat. So they're owners. They own the business. They could walk away the next day, and they would still own the business for the rest of their lives. And my lawyer thought I was crazy, but it's like, it's the same thing. It's like, it's not, you can be some slick talking, whatever, and, say like, we want you to treat it like it's your own, or we want you to really take ownership over it. It's like, why? Why would somebody do that? I mean, like, there needs to be that. So like for the new place, we took 3 employees from Giant and did the same thing. Like, just gave them a piece of the business.
So it is to treat it like your own, because it is.
It has to. It has to be, And we were like, but it's a great feeling for us too, because like we're actually in New York because we paid off our investors at Giant, so this is like a celebration.
Congratulations!
Thanks.
Oh, that is huge.
Yeah,
It's giant even.
It's a feeling that I've never felt before. And
is that just a weight lifted off your...
It is.
So you get to have new nightmares now.
Yeah. So let's borrow more money.
Yeah.
So we were sitting around last night. We were at Minetta Tavern.
Oh, what a great place. Burgers?
Burgers, yeah.
It's a good burger.
It's a good burger. And we were talking about like how we were going to structure employee appreciation and like what kind of parties we were going to have now that we're going to have 2 places. And like sometimes it gets a little weird because not everybody knows everybody, and you really want to like, celebrate like this one group and they know, you know what I mean? It's just, so we're like, this is our dinner conversation. We're like going around the table and whatever. And I was like, well, we just brought on 3 new partners who are owners. Like, when we're all like, oh yeah, they should plan the parties and then tell us when to come. But it's like, but it's such a like,
that ownership is huge.
It is. It's like, they're going to knock it out of the park. And we're, we've bundled ourselves up in like the old white guy thing where it's like, how do we have a fun party? It's like, let them fucking do it. This is their place. And like, we'll show up and we'll, have too much to drink and it'll be great.
You know what you've set up for yourself there? You've set up
Life.
a legacy too. Legacy and a life. That ain't bad.
Well, it's like, but the thing is, again, they could, it's a gamble, and like, life is full of gambles, but it's like if all three of them walked away today, we'd have to figure it out tomorrow. I mean, like, I obviously don't want that to happen, but it's like, there's no other way to show people that you trust them than to say, here you go. This is your business. Like, you have to.
I love that. What would you say to yourself the night that you won Best New Chef? Or maybe the next morning?
Oh, man. It is life-changing immediately. And you can it's one of those, it's like a superpower for a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, you can kind of do whatever you want. I mean, a lot of people that I know, like, used it to, travel to Italy for 3 months, and like, it's a great foot in the door, and you all of a sudden know all these people, but it's like, it is, having the chance to look back on it, it is people. You know what I mean? Like, you can go meet people. Please, everybody, try to be a Best New Chef, because it's fucking awesome. But you have to, like, see it as what it is. It's like, it's a thing. It's in a way material. You know what I mean? And I will say, if I could tell myself this, prepare yourself for the fact that 10 other people are going to get it the next year. And that can be like a little bit of a gut punch, because you are literally on top of your own world. But it's like, the world spins on with, you can stand still and like daydream and gaze off into the clouds and, look up a list that you're on the same list as Thomas Keller.
Right.
It's like, that's a big deal. But I mean, I could type a piece of paper and put my name next to Thomas Keller's, and I mean, like, it is just stuff,
I like where you've landed with this. It's just dinner. It's just stuff.
Always. Family, restaurant, whatever else.
Well, in this hierarchy of needs and wants and things, a question
Maslow never thought he'd be talking about this.
Oh my God. Maslow. I know. Well, a question I ask everybody is, and this is you putting it out to the universe, because I really do believe in saying something out loud so it can happen. Because you've put this.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's a good way to make sure things happen. Just say it.
Yeah. So you've done a lot of things for other people, and you take care of family and people around you. And what is the thing that you want for yourself?
I would like to see the benefit of some of these things. Like this is not a humble brag or anything like that, but like, we do a lot of work for, like, the ACLU and Planned Parenthood and things like that. I would like to see the fucking fruits of those labors. Like, mm-hmm. I'd like to see, and you see it in I just want, like, the mm-hmm. groundswell. I want, like, the big, I don't even know what it is, but I want to see the climax.
Yeah.
Like, I want to feel the, like, I want the Supreme Court decision to go the right way. I want the ACLU to be more, to fix everything. And I know that's, like, ridiculous, but
you gotta want it, though.
You gotta want it, right? Or else why do it? Know? I'd like the world to be a better place, like, honestly.
Well, and that is the altruistic thing. What's the selfish thing you want?
I don't know. Finish this tattoo would be good.
What is that one? People who cannot see it on.
This is Marc Chagall's Romeo
beautiful.
and Juliet, the Paris Opera House.
Yeah.
This is the one I got when I got married, me and my wife.
Oh,
and
beautiful.
Then I've always dreamed of, like, finishing it when I found out, like, who my kids were.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And now we call them the ladybugs. So I've like started to collect, like, different what's it called, fonts or, like, mm-hmm. styles of ladybug, and they're just going to go all around it.
I love that.
That'd be fun.
I think that's a beautiful thing.
Any tattoo artists who want to do it.
I'm thinking the person who did my most recent one from Three Kings.
Oh,
They
cool.
are some really.
They here?
They are, and
Oh.
you should go. Did a big okra up the back of.
Oh, cool.
And they do really incredibly beautiful work. There.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and they love chefs. So
Great.
The beautiful thing. I have 5 questions that I ask of everybody in this sort of speed round to get
They're
as
all about the Avengers.
well, by the time this airs, we will know what happens. But I was actually
Yeah.
listening to a podcast on the way in today where they were all very extremely giddy for Avengers.
So excited. It's
Because there's going to be a
crazy.
whole reboot, basically. Like the whole Marvel universe is going to be reset.
I don't even know. I don't know.
I know, Eliza. I know where you're going to be this weekend. But what is your comfort food?
Hamburgers.
Any particular place or just hamburgers, general, full stop?
Yeah, I mean, I will say the Minetta Tavern burger was a little thick for me. Like, I definitely like the smash burger. Pretty simple. The restaurant or the bar right next to Giant is called Scofflaw. I feel it's the best hamburger in the city.
Okay.
So anytime that I'm walking to my car and the corner seat at the bar is
Yeah.
open, it's like magnetic. I just go, I sit there, I have a beer and a burger and fries and look on my phone, and it's great.
That sounds so.
It's so everything.
Oh,
It's so great.
I had a really good burger in New Orleans this week at Justine. Hell of a burger.
Nice.
And yeah, and you can get like foie on it if you want.
Oh,
to.
nice.
It's a really good burger, and I love that. What is the last meal that you had that made you emotional?
I think Monteverde
Oh, she's so good.
in Chicago.
What is shout it out?
Sarah Grunenberg. She does this. You know, she's definitely. We see food the same way. It's like you put food on a plate and you don't really tell people how to eat. She's got one dish that's like a pesto gnocchetti that it's not mixed. So like the gnocchetti's in like a really light sauce, and she's going to kill me for not knowing what it is. But then there's this beautiful pesto just like spooned in the middle. And you're just supposed to kind of like gently mix it and all that stuff. And it just comes together, and it's just really, really, really gorgeous.
Oh my God, I want that so badly right now. I just remember it's Alex McWatt at Three Kings who needs to do
Oh,
your
cool.
too. So just remember that part. And he makes a really nice whiskey too.
Perfect.
Oddly. What is the last meal that somebody cooked for you in their home?
Oh, man. It doesn't happen often.
Yep. People don't cook for chefs.
No, they don't. But it's, it's like one of those things I'll say to people who have friends that are chefs, like we love it. Like if the chicken's dry, great. Like that reminds us of like growing up and like our, it's not like the imperfections are the things that give us the memories that we crave. Like every chef, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to create these memories somehow, but it's like you can't dry out the chicken, right? And charge people money for it. But you can I don't know. It's just like, that's the best. I will say, God love my wife. She's the worst cook on the planet. No. So I know she wants me to say like something about some meal that she cooked, and she's going to watch. She'll be like, what do you mean? But the last time I've said it before, but the last time she cooked something, it tasted like college.
Oh, she's perfect in all other ways,
All
though.
other ways.
Oh, what living musician would you want to cook for?
Trey
And
Anastasio.
what would you cook for Trey Anastasio?
I don't know. I just want to talk to him.
Oh, but wow, no, okay, close your eyes and think like, okay, he walks into your restaurant or your house for some reason.
That'd be
Trey,
so cool.
What would that thing be?
I don't know. Just kind of what they want. I'd rather ask what they want than what I want to give them.
That's so hospitality of you.
Well, it's got to be because it's like,
But, like, what's your show-off dish? Like, what would you make for a friend who wasn't feeling so hot? Maybe they'd gone through a breakup, they'd gone through a whatever. What is your care dish?
I make pretty good soups. I had a friend who had a health scare a couple weeks ago, and I made him like a fuck ton of soups, which were pretty good. Beet and coconut
What?
with
Oh,
lime.
that sounds so good.
Yeah, it was good. Pasta, honestly, like I love the feeling of rolling pasta. I love
Yeah.
like my Instagram the people that I follow on Instagram it's like Pasta Grannies and the guy from Buca in Toronto.
Oh,
that
yeah.
guy is insane.
And is it Simonetti who works with Fabio Trabacci? Like she has an incredible feed of her just making pasta shapes.
Really?
Oh, I'll have to send you that.
I nerd out over that like crazy.
It is hypnotic.
Yeah.
It is so beautiful. I think, that Instagram just with all the shapes.
Oh, man. When I see the little video in the corner, I'm like, click, click. It's like, just show me how to do it.
Oh, my, I think Simonetta is her name, but I'll make sure to send you that. And let's say you have 5 uninterrupted minutes for self-care. What is the thing you do?
I play guitar, like when nobody's around, and I like belt it out. Like my wife is a musician, so she's taught me how, like, my big thing that I could never do when I was like in the metal band in high school is sing and play at the same time.
Yeah.
And now I can. So that, like, I really like playing Wildflowers by Tom Petty.
Oh.
And my new thing, this is going to sound so corny. There's a song from Annie, the musical.
Which one is it?
Maybe. That literally makes me cry every time I hear it.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So I learned how to play it so that ideally sometime I can play it with my kids. And, like they play their little tiny cellos and stuff like that.
I was going to ask if they have instruments too.
Alice, the 4-year-old, she plays fiddle. And Sydney, the 8-year-old, plays cello, like in 4 and 8-year-old ways. But like I can play like Amanda by Waylon Jennings, and like Sydney will try and do the harmony, and it's like, I don't know, it's just, that's my self-care, like just being a nerdy dad trying to get your kids to like sing with you. I'll sing Annie, how's that? And then you're just like bawling.
That is really beautiful. And I think this is a lovely way to wrap it up. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.
Oh my God. Thank you so much to our guest today, Jason Vincent. And let's see, the various socials, if you want to see him be angry on Twitter, is Jason Vincent 00. That you can also follow Giant Chicago on the various socials. You can find him at City Mouse and coming up Chef's Special Cocktail Bar. So please go and visit him next time you're in Chicago. Thank you to our producers, Jennifer Martinick, Alicia Cabral, and Amy Frank. Thanks to Douglas Wagner for our delightful theme song. If you like what you heard, please tell a friend, write a review, or rate us. And those stars and reviews really, really do matter so people can actually find us. If there's something you'd like for us to talk about or a guest you'd like to hear from, please let us know. You can find me on Twitter at kittenwithawhip, find out more about the show, and catch up on all of the episodes at foodandwine.com and at Food and Wine's YouTube page. Thank you for listening, and take good care of yourself until the next time.